What's up YouTube? It's Samara again, and you are at the channel where you get Samara that world, get it, Samara of that world. And today we're going to continue on with the series on perceptions that people from other countries have of Americans. If you didn't see part 1, go check that out first. I'll leave the link in the description. And for those of you who are back, welcome back. And just wanted to say that if you're gonna watch this video, I highly recommend you watch until the end because the best part is literally at the end of this video, but do not just skip ahead to the end because that would be cheating. And as always, you guys, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want more videos like this. Also, if you guys are looking for travel advice, I will be posting on this YouTube travel advice, but I also want to do stuff like this where it's more entertainment based and just share with you guys some personal stories so that we can have more of a personal relationship on YouTube. So if you guys are looking for advice specifically, go check out my blog. I'm gonna leave the website link in the description. That already has plenty of information for you to start reading. I mean, I literally have blog posts on preparing for a around the world trip, financing around the world trip, budgeting around the world trip, and a bunch of posts on saving money while you travel. And I will be updating that weekly. So yeah, you guys can start getting that information now if you really want travel advice. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, on to the next one. So what else do we have here? Oh, they think we are all white. You guys are like, wait, what? The US is supposed to be a melting pot, right? You'd think like everyone would know this, like the US is a melting pot, there's tons of immigrants. And maybe it's because I'm from California, so I'm just so used to seeing people of all different ethnicities in the US. I mean, the US, California. And I mean, even if you go to certain parts of California, you have like sections that are Koreatown or, you know, Chinatown. You have these sections where it's specifically for that culture. And so, you know, when I was traveling and I would tell people I was from the US, people would actually be like, wait, what? You're from the US? I thought you were from like Spain. You don't look American. And I would actually just sit there and be like, wait, what do you mean I don't look American? And that's the thing, this is mainly for the non-Americans watching this. I just want you guys to realize that not every American is white, and the stuff that you see on TV, that's a very small representation of the US because that's literally just famous people that are in movies that are supposedly representing the whole US. Until you go to the US, you will not see the diversity that I'm talking about. And unfortunately, there's probably not as many minorities traveling as I would like. So actually that's part of my goal with all of this is to encourage minorities in the US to travel more. You know, I am half Mexican and half white, and I live in the US, born and raised in the US, and you know, it doesn't there's no American look. Whatever you see in TV does not dictate what an American looks like. We have people from Korea, China, Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, India. You know, we have people from all over and they are born here. So if you're born in the US, you are American. I also want to say something about this a little bit further. And by the way, this perception that, you know, you don't look American typically came from my time when I was in Asia. Asians from Asia typically were very confused that I was from the US. On the other hand, in Europe, I had a different experience. In Europe, I had more of a people fetishizing me being Latin. It was like, I would tell them I'm American, but then once they knew I was half Mexican, they would attach themselves to that idea. It was like if it was easier for them to not think I was American because that would for some reason hurt their perception of me, it was easier for them to associate themselves with the fact that I'm Mexican. So yeah, that's another thing is that just because I'm half Mexican doesn't mean I'm not American. Still American. So on to the next one. Oh, okay, so different parts of the US have different accents. So that's also a misperception, I think, because maybe back in the day it was more prominent. I think nowadays things are starting to change. You know, people from Texas don't sound like, I'm from Texas. You know, they don't all sound like that. Maybe there's some people, but I've met plenty of them that talk like me. Also from New York, everyone thinks, not everyone, but a lot of people think that they have that New Yorker accent. Yeah, there are some people, but also once again, some of them sound like me. So yeah, not everyone has those accents that you're typically associating with certain parts of the US. Another stereotype perception of Americans is that we're fat. If you guys didn't know that, yep, people think we're fat. So I'm gonna get into whether or not this is true of Americans, but I will say that if you look up the top 10 countries in the world that are the most obese, the US is not in the top 10. So yeah, there you go. Oh, and I actually found out that Jordan is right behind the US in terms of obesity rates, and I hardly ever hear people say that they assume that Jordan is obese, but we'll get into why that perception exists. Okay, everyone, so with shows like My 600-Pound Panda, 600-Pound Life, it makes sense why Americans are being viewed as fat. Even our TV shows are portraying us that way. And although I did say that the US isn't in the top 10 most obese countries in the world, unfortunately, the information I found regarding our obesity rates is still sad. Actually, I found that from 1999 to 2000 through 2017 to 2018, the prevalence of obesity increased from 30.5% to 42.4%, and the prevalence of severe obesity increased from 4.7 to 9.2%. That was over a 17-year period. Now, I do want to say that California, the state that I'm from, has the 4th lowest obesity rates in the US. So if you meet someone from California, the chances that they're going to be obese or overweight are smaller than other parts of the US. Remember, the US is a big country, so depending on where someone is from, there may be more of a health-conscious community in that area. Aside from that, I do want to say that although the obesity rates in the US are quite high, I think that the obesity epidemic is more complex than just saying that people are gluttonous. I think that a lot of it has to do with disparities in income, education, and access to healthcare. In fact, there are actual disparities in obesity rates amongst educated and non-educated people. So clearly things are more complex, and this is a little bit deeper than just saying that people in the US eat a lot. Aside from that, I also want to say that there was actually a documentary created called Fast Food Nation that talks about how the US is a fast food nation, and I can attest that yes, in a way, the US is a nation of fast food. You can find fast food in the US on pretty much every corner. You can find it everywhere. It's literally so accessible. So I'm sure there are a lot of people who are eating a lot of fast food, maybe every day, maybe multiple times a day. So obviously, if people are eating a lot of fast food, that's going to increase weight gain. And aside from that, fast food is actually highly addictive. So you need to take that into consideration. I don't think that it's just people being gluttonous. Do I think that there's ways to lose weight and try to overcome that addiction? Then of course, yes, I do believe that, but I think that it's very difficult, and I think there is an actual addiction happening within our country because of fast food. And that's coming from someone who used to be overweight and who actually gave up fast food. And I remember in that moment in my life, it being very difficult. And aside from that, looking at the US compared to European countries, we can obviously tell that the reason why Americans are more obese than some European countries, well, a lot of them, is because we don't walk as much. Our country is very spread out, so people are very car dependent. So that means we aren't walking as much as people in Europe. In Europe, things are a lot more compact, so it's a lot easier to get around and walk around and even walk to go get groceries. We don't really have that here, unless maybe you're in Manhattan. So yeah, that's all I want to say, is that we do have high obesity rates, and I think that's unfortunate, but I also feel that it's not necessarily people's individual fault. I think there's just a lot more that's going into this obesity epidemic than we realize. What else? Let's see. Oh, we only speak English. That's another misperception. But I will say that because the majority language is English, that's probably what most people, pretty much, yeah, most people are going to be speaking English. But once again, we have a ton of minorities in the US from all over the world. So of course, all of these people that were born in other countries, or maybe their kids that they had, also speak other languages. You know, if I'm the kid of a Mexican woman from Mexico, I speak Spanish. You know, I don't only speak English. And so there are people from the US that are, you know, Korean. Maybe their parents taught them Korean and they speak Korean. They don't only speak English. So you also have to take that into account when you're meeting an American. We don't all only speak English. So the next one, which is actually very contradictory to that perception, because like I said, different countries, different people have different perceptions, but I found that some people think we only speak English, and that it was almost shocking that, you know, an American would speak anything other than English. But then on the flip side, I also had people being like, wait, doesn't everyone in the US speak Spanish though? Okay, no, they don't all speak Spanish. For the most part, all of the people that I know that learned Spanish in high school forgot it after they left high school. So mainly the people who speak Spanish are all of the Americans who have immigrant parents. Those people that are from Latin countries, their parents are from Latin countries, those people are the ones that are most likely to speak Spanish. I don't meet very many non-Latin people who speak Spanish. So once again, if you're looking at the US and you're thinking that all of the US speak Spanish, no. Is there a lot of Latin influence in the US? Yes. Latin people make up the largest minority in the US. So there you have it. Okay. So, superficial and materialistic. I had actually quite a few people message me about this one. Let's see what they had to say. So, yeah, Denmark, again, says that we are people who truly believe that money is the most important thing to be happy. I think partially that's because we live in a capitalist society, and that is kind of a value in the US, is to be successful, to chase the American dream, to make a lot of money because you can, right? There's this perception that if I work hard, I can make a lot of money. So there's this kind of always this like goal in the back of your mind of like, yeah, I can chase that, I can get that $1 million, I can be a millionaire. So I mean, to some extent it makes sense why Americans might be seen as materialistic, or why there's this kind of value of financial success that Americans hold. Okay, yeah, here's another one. This is literally from someone from France. Superficial, empty and materialistic in that way. No deepness of soul. I asked actually this person why they got that perception. Was that from Americans that you'd actually met, or where were you getting that no depth of soul? This is something I had heard multiple times actually. I heard this from someone from Sweden tell me that we have no depth of soul, or just no like depth to us. And I really don't know what that means, to be honest. What does depth of soul mean? That's, I feel like, subjective, but let's get into this. So what did he say? I asked him to elaborate. Okay, yeah, so from the TV shows that we put on. Yeah, from the TV shows, like Newport Beach. All of those girly TV shows. Oh my god, this is what I mean. This is what I mean. If you guys are looking at Americans from the perspective of reality TV is trash. Like, it is actual trash. It puts on people in the worst light possible. You can't generalize or stereotype people based off TV. There are so many types of people in the US with so many thoughts and opinions, and it's like, how can you sit there and say that a whole population has no depth of soul and that it's superficial, materialistic? If you are looking at specific parts of the population that might be considered more superficial or materialistic, let's say for instance Southern California, because there's a bunch of shows on Southern California, Newport Beach, like he said, you know, all these Orange County, etc., etc. Well then yeah, that's painting people in a very negative light. Southern California is a huge film, you know, there's a huge film industry here. There's a lot of wealthy, famous people here. So you cannot look at Southern California and say that that represents America. Let's see, what else? Okay, they think we're arrogant, or maybe proud, either one. This actually wasn't really necessarily a bad thing that this person told me. Once again, shout out to France. Let's see. He goes, that's actually a good question, about what I think about Americans, mainly travelers, because never been in America. That's another thing. A lot of these people have never even been to the US, and they're making assumptions about Americans without even having gone to the US. But anyway, is that people there are really proud of their country and themselves, really open-minded, and they talk a lot and don't have shame about anything. A bit arrogant sometimes, but I think that it's part of being proud. Amazing people, exclamation mark. Okay. So, ultimately, this guy has had good experiences with Americans, just thinks that we're pretty proud and possibly arrogant. I think that there are Americans that are very proud of, you know, being American. That's why you hear these things like, America is the greatest country in the world. My dad would say that a lot. I personally, being Mexican-American, or half Mexican, half American, white, whatever you want to call it, I had a love-hate relationship with America growing up, so that's why I think you can't just make this assumption that every American is proud to be American. I'm not saying I'm not proud, like I said, I have a love-hate relationship with it because of how Mexican minorities in the US are kind of ostracized, or just the racism that ensues against them. So yeah, kind of have a love-hate relationship. I don't think that every American is like super proud to be American. Also, Sorry, you guys. Proud of themselves. I think that comes from the very much independent, individualist culture that we come from. The US is very individualist. Because they rank very high in individualism as a value, it makes sense that maybe some of them are arrogant. So I think that, you know, some people will be, but I don't think that that's necessarily everyone. Also, they say we have a shit sense of humor. I'm not gonna lie, this is more clickbait than anything, but I had a friend who's from the UK say that our sense of humor is a little interesting for him. He goes, I know the general difference between Brits and Americans is the humor. They say Brits have a very dry, sarcastic sense of humor and Americans struggle to get it, but I can honestly say nearly every American I've met I thought is super cool. Awesome. But I definitely noticed a slight divide in my household in Ubud. We were in the group with some other Brits, some Aussies, and one girl from Texas, and the banter was flowing because Brits and Aussies have so much in common. Commonwealth, TV shows, festivals, humor, etc. And in the end, the girl from Texas was just like, right, y'all, I'm gonna go to bed because I have no idea what's going on here. So I guess to them, our humor is not very good. We don't really get dry sense of humor. Maybe we're a little too sensitive because when they're being sarcastic, we don't get it, or we just get offended. I don't know. Honestly, I find the people from the UK hilarious. I actually find sarcastic humor funny, so I don't know. I guess you can't. Once again, you can't say that all Americans don't get it, but I think it's an individualistic thing. I actually asked this friend, you know, do you feel like this whole perception that you people from the UK have sarcastic humor is in itself a stereotype? You know, he kind of made it seem like, and I've heard this from so many people from the UK, that yeah, actually it's kind of like a general sense of humor around the UK, but in the US, like I said, once again, it's a very individualist society. I don't think there's this kind of common sense of humor. I think people just have all kinds of different sense of humor, and it really depends on the person. I said, you know, do you think we're more sensitive? He goes, yeah, I would say more sensitive, or maybe it's not. It's hard to say. It's just totally different. Again, in Kangoo, I was sitting with 3 American girls, and we got along great, and when I said I needed to go for a wee, a very English way of saying pee, instead of go use the bathroom, they burst into fits of laughter, and after half an hour I was like, okay, it really wasn't that funny. Okay. I died laughing about this. But yeah, so I guess our sense of humor is shit to some people. Alright, next one. So, extroverted. Okay, I guess they think we're extroverted. So I had one friend from France say that we talk a lot. Like I said, I think I brought that up earlier. Talk a lot. One friend from Denmark say that we're open-minded. The French friend also said we're open. But you know, I think with this, it's just kind of hard to categorize everyone as extroverted. Once again, I think this is a personality thing. I think some Americans are extroverted and some are introverted. But I will say that to some extent, this stereotype probably holds true because the US is such a capitalist society. So, you know, when you think about capitalism, it's all about, you know, profit and making money. And that kind of goes back to that materialism thing that I was saying earlier. My friend from Denmark said that he thought we were materialistic. So once again, going back to the whole extroversion thing, I think that also is influenced by capitalism, because I think that within the US, society and businesses in general kind of reward individuals who are more extroverted. You know, when you think about sales, for instance, salespeople in the US make a lot of money. I've actually talked to salespeople from other parts of the world, and they do not make nearly as much money as salespeople in the US. So when you have people in the US making a ton of money from sales, there's once again a reward for being extroverted. So it's kind of like, almost like if I'm not extroverted, I'm gonna get left behind. So I think people learn to be extroverted in the US because of the culture. And yeah, there you go. That's it. There you have it. You know, I want to end this video with this. There was something I wanted to say, but I really don't think that I can say it as best as the one friend from South Africa I had that reached out to me. So I'm gonna let you guys listen to what he has to say about this.
So this is the problem that I have with perceptions of people. Like, obviously in what I do and how I live, I meet hundreds, if not thousands, of tourists every year. And to be very honest with you, I also always had this idea about Americans, and that they are stupid, and that they are just basically rednecks. But then I started meeting Americans that travel. So let's say I've probably met 300 Americans in the last 10 years or whatever. They were all travelers. They were all really nice people. They were all fairly intellectual. So really nice people. They definitely changed my opinion. But you guys have a population of what, 300 million or something like that? So the 300 that I have met is a fraction of the population. So I'm very sure there's a lot of Americans in America that are not like the ones that I've met, because I do also think that people that travel have a certain kind of personality. But yeah, I actually really like Americans. I do think you guys have some good attributes. Yeah, to end this conversation, I feel it's really dangerous to judge a nation of 300 million people on 30 or 3 or 300 or 3,000 or even 3 million people that you have met. Even in our small little nation, we are extremely diverse. You cannot you cannot base anything of South Africa upon meeting me, for instance, or meeting Arnold, or yeah, I don't know. In general, I think you should stay away from judging nations like that. But I like Americans. I like the Americans that I have met, if that is a summary for you.